About 7 years ago, I started walking in my sleep. And I would have these recurring dreams that there was a hovering insect-like jackal in our bedroom. And I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and I would jump on the bed, and I would strike a karate pose. I'd never taken karate, but I had the books from book fair, and I would say, "Abby," that was my girlfriend, "there's a jackal in the room." And she got so used to it, she could talk me down while remaining asleep. She'd say, "There's no jackal in the room, go to bed." And I would say, "Are you sure?" And she would say, "Yes, Michael, go to bed, there's no jackal." And I would say, "Okay." And I would go to bed knowing that there was a jackal. And that's trust. It was around that time I had a dream that I was in the Olympics for some kind of arbitrary event like dustbustering. And they told me I got third place, and I stood up on the third place podium, and I'm feeling good about myself. I'm new to the sport, and they say, actually, we reconsidered, and you got first place. And I was like, oh, well, that's a marvelous promotion. I got first place. I move over to the first place podium, and it starts wobbling. And it's wobbling and wobbling, and I wake up, and I'm falling off the top of our bookcase in our living room. And I land on the floor hard on top of our TiVo. And it broke into pieces, and I'm disoriented on the floor, and it's like one of these stories where people black out drinking and they wake up in Idaho and they don't know where they are, and they're like, "Oh no! Hardee's," or whatever's there. But it was in my own living room. I was just like, "Oh no! TiVo pieces," and I went to bed, and Abby woke me up in the morning, and she said, "Michael, what happened to the TiVo?" And I said, "I got first place. And it's a long story." So at this point I thought, maybe I should see a doctor. And then I thought, maybe I'll eat dinner. Because that seems more convenient. But a lot of people would say this to me. My parents, my dad's a doctor. He'd say, you should really see a doctor. And I remember, saying, I'm really busy. And thinking these people were crazy, they don't know how busy I am. And so I never went to a doctor, but I did purchase a book by a doctor named Dr. Dement, and it was, which is not the most calming name for a sleep doctor, but it's called The Promise of Sleep, and I learned, and these are helpful tips. I learned turn off cable news or the news before bed, turn off your cell phone, turn off the internet, your computer, don't have big meals, that kind of thing. And I came across in the sleep disorders a disorder that resembled symptoms of mine, and it was called REM behavior disorder. And people who have this have a dopamine deficiency. And dopamine is the chemical that's released from your brain into your body that paralyzes your body when you fall asleep so that you don't do what's in your brain. So I thought, maybe I have this, you know, and then I thought, you know, maybe I'll eat dinner. And so I never went to see a doctor until about 3 years ago. I was performing in a college in Walla Walla, Washington. I'm a comedian by trade, and I was staying at a hotel called La Quinta Inn, and some people correct me. They go, no, it's La Quinta. And I'm like, that's not fair. You can't force me to speak Spanish. I'm at La Quinta Inn in Walla Walla, Washington, and I fell asleep watching the news, you know, and it was sort of a, you know, a story about war and something very chaotic. And I fell asleep, and I had a dream that there was a guided missile headed towards my room. And there's all these military personnel in the room with me, and I jump out of bed, and I'm like, what's the plan? And they say, it's come to our attention, the missile coordinates are set specifically on you. And I thought, that's very bad. Because, you know, I don't have a plan for that one. So I decided to jump out the window in my dream. And as it turns out, in my life. And there are two important details. One, I was on the second floor of La Quinta Inn, and two, the window was closed. So I jumped through a window like the Hulk. And I say that because that's how I described it at the emergency room in Walla Walla, Washington. I was like, you know the Hulk, you know, he just kind of jumps through stuff. So I jump through the window and I scream, ah! And what was remarkable is that people with this disorder are capable of doing things they couldn't do in their everyday life. It's like blacking out drinking, where you don't feel any pain or inhibition. I jumped through a second-story window, and I landed on the front lawn of the hotel. I took a spill, I got back up, and I kept running. And I'm running, and I'm slowly realizing I'm on the front lawn of La Quinta Inn in Walla Walla, Washington, in my underwear, bleeding. And I'm like, oh no. And it was one of those rare moments in your life where in retrospect you're like, what the hell? And at the time you're like, I guess I'll walk to the front desk and explain what happened. Fortunately, the person working at the front desk was mildly retarded. And I say fortunately because he was completely unfazed by what had just happened. It's 3 a.m. The phones are ringing off the hook from people staying at the hotel who just saw the guy jump out the window screaming. I'm bleeding in my underwear. And I say, hello. Because as it turns out, you have to start somewhere. I'm staying at the hotel, credibility. I had an incident wherein I jumped out of my window. I am bleeding and I need to go